Today, we're going to cover the difference between synchronous and asynchronous online course formats, best practices for facilitating an online course and online activities, and then finally how to convert existing face-to-face course activities into both an asynchronous and a synchronous online activity. So hopefully you guys will find some of this as interest to you. So for those that might not be aware, there are two types of online course formats. You have something that's called a synchronous course format, which is what we're doing right now. It's when we have a specific time and place that we're going to meet in a virtual space. Where an asynchronous class session is when you post all of your materials and readings, things like that, that you need for a student to complete for that module, and then they can come at any time to complete that information. So it's going to be at potentially different times in different places. And so those are the two main formats that you can do. There are some classes that do a hybrid of both, that they have synchronous elements as well as asynchronous elements. Now, as anything, there are pros and cons to both synchronous and asynchronous formats. So some pros for synchronous sessions are built-in time for collaboration. So in this class session, we have the opportunity to talk and collaborate among things, whereas in an asynchronous session, it all is done at different times, so you don't have that built-in time for collaboration. It allows for instant feedback and clarification from an instructor. So if I'm instructing something right now and you had a question about a synchronous class and what that means, you could turn on your microphone and talk to me in real time and get that instant feedback from me. I can also gauge the student interactions and understanding of concepts immediately. So I can ask you guys, do you guys understand what a synchronous class session is? And you can have some people that say thumbs up, some people that shake their head no, but I get that instantaneous feedback to understand if you guys understand everything that's going on in this concept. Asynchronous also has its pros. It's convenient and flexible. So we have some online learners that might be working full-time, they might be parents, they might have night shift at jobs. So asynchronous class sessions let them log in when they have time to be able to complete the coursework. They're not fixed at a definite time and location. It also gives them the opportunity to reflect and understand the course material. Sometimes in a synchronous class session, you might have the course material and the instructor might ask you to answer a question about it. You might not have that time to actually reflect and reread certain concepts that you might not be able to comprehend, rewatch different instructional videos. So it gives you that time to kind of rewatch things, fully understand it, and reflect on what you're reading and what the instructor wants you to understand. You also have the ability to express your thoughts on topics without interruption. So in a synchronous class format, there's built-in time for us to talk, but sometimes if it's a lot of people in a class session, it's hard to get possibly all of your words out and without anybody interrupting you. So in an asynchronous class session, you have the time to formulate your opinion and write down everything that you understand about the concept and be able to express it without the fear of somebody potentially cutting you off or, you know, interrupting you without meaning to. So it gives you those types of positive things with an asynchronous session. Now, just like anything, there are cons to both as well. So synchronous, a big con is that it's an inflexible learning schedule. So there's not a time for me to say, well, actually I can't meet Mondays at 1 and I'm gonna miss out on that content. So it can be inflexible. There's a possibility of connectivity or technology issues. So if a student, might not have good bandwidth, they might hear, the jittering back and forth of me going back and forth. And I see Kim popped in. Kim, is there somebody that wants to join? Give me 1 second while I will put in. Thank you, Kim. You're muted, Kim. Okay, perfect. Okay, sorry about that. So there's possibility of bandwidth issues, people freezing and, having the jitter of, if I'm not talking, you get that like, burp, 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 burp. glitching, that's never fun for somebody. And you also have technology issues. You can see with Kim, she forgot to turn on her microphone while we were talking. And not everybody is going to be an expert with Zoom or whatever application you're going to do. So you have that potential to kind of disrupt class time. And then another con is that the learning pace is set by the instructor, not the students. So the instructor is going to say how much time I'm going to have on this particular reading, how much time I'm going to talk about this content, where you might have some students that you might be going too fast for them. You might be even going too slow. So that's definitely a con with synchronous learning. And then asynchronous learning obviously has its cons as well. There's no real-time interaction with the instructor. So if you were reading something or you were watching an instructional video the instructor had, and you were like, wait, I have a question about this. I'm not quite understanding it. You don't have that real-time interaction to be able to raise your hand and say, can you recover this subject because I still have questions. You have the possibility to not build that relationship that some people build in a face-to-face course or a synchronous class session with your instructor because you don't see them as much and you don't really get to know how their personality is. It's hard to kind of get tone across in an asynchronous class session. And then you have to find time to communicate with your group. A lot of online classes have group work. And with an asynchronous class session, you don't have that built-in time to communicate with your group. You guys have to find a schedule that works for everyone in your group session. So that can definitely be a con. And then we have delayed conversation. So when you want to talk about a concept and it's in a class discussion, I'm going to say something that I feel, and then Natasha might comment on something and ask me a question. But instead of getting that immediate response, she has to wait for me to log on, type the answer to her question, and then I wait for her response. So there's some delayed conversation there. So there are pros and cons to both. But what is the best type of online format for your class? And this is where you need to really think about your learners and what is the content of your course? What are their learning needs? Do you have students that are working full time? Do you have students that are mostly parents? Maybe asynchronous is the way for them to go. Is it difficult content that you feel like people are going to have a lot of questions about? And if that's the case, maybe synchronous is the way to go, just because you have that built-in class time where you can get the immediate response of students engage how they're feeling about the content. So there's different things that you should think about when choosing between one or the other, or maybe a hybrid of both a synchronous and asynchronous class session is right for you. I'm going to take this time to pause to see if you guys have already chosen a synchronous or asynchronous session, and have you guys seen any pros and cons of what you're doing right now? So feel free to open up your microphones. I believe all of you are muted. So if you guys want to speak, feel free to. But if not, that is okay too.
Hey, Ashley. Thanks for putting this on. Kind of odd being in this setting with all of you. For those who don't know, I teach an EMT class on the weekend, so I thought that this might be useful to me as well. One question that I had brought up from a student was having cameras on versus off, and is there best practice for that with the class in order to facilitate kind of engagement and discussion as you were talking about kind of getting that instant feedback? What's your recommendation on that?
So I'm happy you asked that, because that is going to be something we're going to talk about, is maintaining a presence between the instructor as well as students and kind of building that community. And having your camera on is more like a face-to-face course session. I can see kind of if you're understanding the material, if you have questions, I can see facial expressions, I can pick up on your cues. And so it kind of helps build that community as well as show that you're present in kind of the conversation. Because, you know, with cameras off, I don't know if you're even physically there. I only see that I think you're signed on, but I don't know if you're engaging in the content or not. So my recommendation would keep it on. Now, there's pros and cons to both. And when I was an online student, I had a class that was at 6 o'clock at night. that's when I like to eat my dinner. And that's when I usually, I don't want to have my camera on. Yep, see, Natasha's eating her dinner. And sometimes I don't like people to see me eat because I could be a messy eater. So during that time, I turn my camera off and then I turn it back on. Or if I have to exit the room to use the restroom, I turn it off and then turn it back on. So I recommend, if your students are okay with it, to have their cameras on, because it helps be able to, I can see what you look like. I can put a face to a name, and it helps build that community, which is so important when it comes to synchronous or asynchronous learning. Does that help answer your question?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Does anybody else have any questions? Ellie, I think I see you talking, but your microphone is muted.
There we go. More basic even than this is, are you showing PowerPoint slides, or how are you showing your points that you're making?
So I was sharing my screen, and then you should have saw the PowerPoint slide a couple minutes ago, and I'll go ahead and share my screen now. But I turned my PowerPoint off while I was having the conversation. Do you see it right now?
Yeah, but this is, my question for you is more basic. So this is the way your PowerPoint comes up.
Oh, my PowerPoint comes up by sharing my screen.
Yeah, okay. It's all right. My PowerPoints, my PowerPoints tend to fill up the whole screen, which drives me crazy. And, I can't, but that's not really a Zoom question. I just was curious.
So you can fill it this way if you want to, by full screening it, or you can not full screen. And that's something I can definitely teach you how to do outside of the workshop, Ellie, if you want to.
Okay, because I do it fine in class, I just, for some reason, when I save it, to my screen and then use it, it doesn't provide me the flexibility the way we have now. That's all.
Okay.
You mind if I say something, Ashley?
Sure.
I discovered this. I didn't know this. In Zoom, when you share, if you move from basic to advanced, it lets you share just a portion of your screen. So I've been keeping my PowerPoint in my notes, whatever that's the notes presentation or whatever it's called. And I just share that portion of my screen. And that way I can see everything coming up, and I could see the notes that I've written for myself, and all they see is the slide.
Yeah, that's definitely best practice. And that's what I'm doing right now. I have my slides on my computer monitor, and then I have my secondary monitor that's displaying the PowerPoint for you guys. And Ellie,
see, I only have one monitor. Yeah. Here. I have two in the office. Okay. Thank you.
So it could be something that we set up a meeting for, and we can figure out what best works for you. Okay. So that way you can kind of see both, if that's something that you want to do.
Yeah, I do. I actually do for the big classes. Yeah. Yeah, I would like to know how to do that better. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
No problem. So now everybody should be seeing my screen, and we're going to kind of talk through best practices for synchronous class sessions, asynchronous class sessions, and then just best practices for online courses in general. So for those that are teaching in a synchronous class format, it's always a best practice to provide your presentation slides and agenda ahead of class. So that way students have the opportunity to print out the slides. They can take notes physically on it. They know what's going to be covered, just so it kind of gives them a nice sense of what the class session is going to be about. And that's something that you can either email to them, or for those that are using Canvas, you can post it right in Canvas within the module. So that way they know exactly where their PowerPoint slides are going to be, and they can download it and have it ready and available to them. Another thing, which is what a lot of you guys have done, is sign on 15 minutes prior to class. So just like a face-to-face class, students don't usually, well, some do, but some students don't walk in right when class starts. They come and they might ask you questions. They might have some banter going with other people in the class. So signing in 15 minutes and opening class gives them the time to engage with you, the instructor, if they have questions about something or material. It also lets them be able to talk to you like a person, instead of just, you're only signing on when class starts. I don't have time to engage with you and talk with you and build that relationship with you. And it also lets students build a relationship with each other, because you can be the facilitator and ask, how was your weekend? And then someone might say something that can then spark a conversation among your students. So that's a great way to help build community in your course. This is something that Joey talked about. Do I have my camera on or do I have it off? Something that's big in online courses is that you want to maintain instructor presence. And you can do that by keeping your camera on, so that way students can see you and they can feel more comfortable engaging with you. So that's something that we definitely recommend, unless you don't feel comfortable, like I was, eating on camera, or I have my toddler run in and I mute myself and turn my camera off quickly so I don't disrupt class. So those are okay. But for the most part, we recommend having them on. You're always going to have potentially, you might have a student that's just not comfortable in general, and that's completely fine. But we always recommend that if students feel comfortable, have it on and have the instructor turn it on as well. Provide time for reflection. Ellie, do you have a question? No. Okay. Provide time for reflection. So when you are in a face-to-face course, I'm hoping that you guys don't just sit there and lecture for an hour and a half without pausing to see how students are feeling, to give them time to kind of reflect on the material that they have. Something that I personally like to abide by is the 10-2 rule, where I will lecture to you guys for 10 minutes and then you saw that I stopped and I had time for you guys to reflect and ask me questions. This gives time for kind of the information to soak into students and really think about, okay, this is what I just learned. Let me think if I have questions about something that was just taught. So that's something I like to abide by, because it helps prevent cognitive overload for your students. Because if you're a student and you're sitting there for an hour and a half and you don't have time to engage in the conversation, it's a lot of content to process. So give that time, even if it's a minute or two, just to kind of pause and give them that time to kind of really have everything soak in, is a great best practice. And then something that we're doing right now is recording the lecture for later viewing. So sometimes students in a synchronous class session, they might be like, oh, my instructor said something, but I forgot to take notes or I didn't take it fast enough. This gives them the opportunity to go back and rewatch the lecture and really be able to pick up on the concepts again. And then you also have times that students might not be able to attend a synchronous class session because they're sick, or childcare wasn't available for them at that time, or they had to stay late at work, or maybe they just needed a personal day. This doesn't penalize them for not attending class. It gives them the ability to watch what they missed in class. So if you provide that lecture and that recording for them, it might help benefit students that missed class, and it might benefit students that attended class, just because it gives them the ability to rewatch kind of all the absorbing information. So it's really a great way to do your online synchronous course sessions. So just like the synchronous course sessions, there's best practices for asynchronous course sessions. So organize your course content intuitively. And this might seem like a no-brainer to some, but sometimes when you're building an asynchronous course session, you might not think of the order how things need to go. So when you're in a face-to-face course session, you wouldn't say, here's the assignment, go do it, then go read all the content about it to see if you did it correctly. So you might want to put all of the readings ahead of time, or a nice introduction to your concepts, and then have it build up to when it's time for their assignment. So that way they understand the concepts and then they jump into the assignment with the understanding of what you wanted them to. So if you're building an asynchronous course session, really make sure that it's intuitive and the content is organized in a way that it should be organized. Present material in a variety of means. So when you're in a face-to-face course, you might lecture, you might hand out handouts, you might show them PowerPoints, you might even show them a video from YouTube. So do the same thing in an asynchronous course session. Provide them with those different types of material so they have different multimodal ways to kind of engage in the material and to have it soak in, because it might be presented in a different way in your textbook as it is an instructional video. Provide clear instructions on an assignment. So an asynchronous course session, they don't have the time to essentially come to class and say, hey, I had a quick question about this assignment. Can you clarify it for me? So it's really important to provide all the instructions that they need to know about that assignment on the assignment itself. So that way they don't feel like, hey, I'm missing something and I don't know if I have time to engage in the instructor before it's due. So really make sure you lay out instructions for the assignment. Include a closing or wrap-up activity. If you think about it, in a face-to-face course, it's not going to be like, okay, bye guys, that was fun, see you next week. You're probably going to do some sort of closing remarks or wrap-up activity for the content. So the same thing should be happening in an asynchronous course, whether it's you just having closing remarks video of just saying, hey, you guys did some great discussion this week. Tisha, I really liked how you pulled X, Y, and Z together. Julie, I really liked how you referenced this in the textbook. So really show them that you're engaging in the material and you're actually taking part in the conversation. If it's an exit slip, that's something that could be, did you find the content in the readings helpful for this week? What do you still have questions on? So that way it gives them the opportunity, students the opportunity to say, hey, can you recover this? So it really gives them a time to really have a nice clean package of a wrap-up activity to say, okay, this is the closing remarks of my module, and now we're going to talk about a new concept. This is something that a lot of asynchronous courses have been struggling with, is providing pre-recorded instructional content from the instructor itself. And I've talked to a lot of asynchronous students, and they feel like they're really missing the interaction between the instructor and the content. They read the material and they want to hear from you as the instructor. They want to hear, am I interpreting this material correctly, or am I missing something? So you as the instructor can provide them with, here are the concepts that you've learned about. Now here's how I interpret it. Here's what you need to take away from that textbook information. And so being able to provide them with that information from you, the instructor, is great. And it's a great opportunity to build instructor presence in a course as well. They can see you, they can hear you. And when it comes to instructional content, 5 to 7 minutes segments. So instead of doing an hour-and-a-half lecture of a PowerPoint, who's going to want to sit and listen to somebody lecture for an hour-and-a-half when they can't engage in the instructor? So really try to break it up into segments. Now, 5 to 7 is not the hard and stop rule. It is a guideline to abide by. If you don't get through all of the concepts and it takes you 8-9 minutes, that's okay. It's just kind of a way to help break it up into concepts and really chunking the information. And then another way to maintain instructor presence is offering virtual office hours. So most face-to-face instructors, they have a time for students to pop in and be able to ask questions and talk to their instructor. So provide that same opportunity for your asynchronous students by having virtual office hours they can pop in. They know Monday and Tuesdays from 10 until 11, my instructor is online and I can pop in and talk to them, whether it's about just talking about how my day was, or just kind of asking a question about the content or the assignment to make sure that they're really understanding it. So it's really important to be able to provide those opportunities for your students to engage with you. So those are kind of your best practices for an online course. And something that I always like to encourage faculty to do is to show your students that you're a person. So with asynchronous course sessions, they don't really have the opportunity to know who you are as a person. So maybe take that time to tell a personal story about yourself or do comedic elements. We had an instructor that does introduction videos to every module. And at the end of every introduction video, she says a joke that she thinks is funny and she wants to share with her students. And that has made her students feel so much more comfortable with her, and they actually send her jokes and they can engage that way. So it's just a fun way that she was able to show her personality through an asynchronous course session. Oops. So there's also great practices for just online courses in general. And this is something that we touched on a little bit, but really encourage community between your online students, because it's harder to build community in an online format than it would be in a face-to-face. And so something I like to recommend is have you serve as the role model for your students. Make sure your camera's on so that way they feel comfortable turning their camera on. If you want to have a class where pets and children are welcome, show them that it's okay that if your cat walks across the screen, you're not like, oh my gosh, that's so embarrassing. Just say, it's okay, we're all learning together. Share personal information about yourself, experiences that you feel comfortable with, just so they feel comfortable talking about those types of things. Also provide students an opportunity to really engage with each other. Whether it's an icebreaker that some students absolutely do not like, but for me, I always enjoyed the icebreaker activities because it let me engage with other people that are in the same field as me, and I might find connections that way. I was in an online MED program, and I engaged with so many of my classmates, and some of them actually work at UVA now, and we still meet up and we talk because we were both in the same program. So it's a really great way to help build community. And then it's most important in an online course to create a safe environment for your students where they feel comfortable sharing information about themselves. And so it might be something of just providing expectations and etiquette to your students of, hey, this is going to be a safe space, so feel free to expand on personal experience or your work experience and kind of talk through, it's okay, we're comfortable, and then make sure everyone feels comfortable and just be able to provide that opportunity for your students. And then lastly, it might be something as simple as just surveying student interest. See what hobbies they're into, what activities, and then try to cater some of the content towards those hobbies and interests. If somebody's really into March Madness, you can, if you're doing a statistics course, maybe throw in a lesson where you talk about March Madness and those types of statistics. And then you can also pair people together that have similar interests. If you know their hobbies and activities, maybe say, you know, Hillary and Jenny really enjoy cooking or baking, so I'm going to put them together, so maybe they'll be able to engage in that or kind of build that community among one another outside of class time. Building interactivity and collaboration opportunities. So to help encourage community again, we want them to be able to communicate and give the same group opportunities, peer review opportunities as you would, so that way they're learning from each other. Building interactivity in your course is really a great best practice because they can engage with the content, whether it's something as simple as like a drag and drop activity or something just to kind of quiz their knowledge instead of just reading a textbook. It kind of breaks up the monotony of just reading a textbook, having an assignment. This is something that a lot of instructional or a lot of online teachers struggle with, is how present do I need to be for students? So I'm an online teacher. Students might think that I have to be on at all times because I always have my computer, and that's not true. If you're a face-to-face instructor, you're not present for your students all the time. So we want you to be present, but set appropriate expectations to say, you know, I'm going to be checking my email from 9 until 5, and I won't check it again until the next day at 9. So just kind of letting your students when you're going to be checking information, how long it's going to take for you to possibly get grades back to them. So just setting those expectations up for students to know when they can communicate with you and when they can reach out and expect to hear from you goes a long way. So that way they're not sitting by their computer saying, well, I emailed my instructor an hour ago and I still haven't heard back from her. Maybe they didn't get it, so let me email again. So just setting those expectations can help really have students understand how long they should hear from you and kind of make sure that you're not online all the time, because that's exhausting for anybody. Scaffolding instructional technology use. So we have a lot of instructors that are doing great instructional technologies. For example, there is a video-based discussion platform called Flipgrid that a lot of instructors are using to help break up written discussions for online students. And what we did was we had an introduction low stakes activity where they were able to utilize Flipgrid and get all the kinks out before it was more of a higher stakes activity where they were getting graded on. So we don't want to throw any sort of instructional technology tools at a student in a high stakes activity if they didn't have time to prepare for it or to really, you know, engage with it prior when they didn't have that stress of a grade over them. So really make sure you're scaffolding the technology use just like you would with content. And then lastly, provide an area on Canvas, if you guys are using Canvas or Colab, for students to ask questions. So a lot of the classes that I work with, we have a discussion area that's kind of the class discussion board where students can ask a quick question and then they can hear from the instructor if the instructor is on. But this also provides an opportunity for students to answer the questions too, to say, hey, I didn't really understand what we were supposed to be doing for this assignment. And a student can say, well, here's what I'm doing, and they'll be able to help communicate that way. So those are some really great practices that you can follow for any online course. So now that we know some best practices, I wanted to kind of talk about the activities to build in an online course. So I want to take this time to pause to talk about what activities are you guys currently utilizing in your course, just to kind of see the room and feel and engage, because I have a couple activities that I have pre-talked about, but I kind of want to take this opportunity to kind of see what you guys are currently using in your course. And if you guys don't feel comfortable, or you guys don't have any activities because you're totally lost, that's fine too.
Well, can I jump in?
Sure, definitely.
First of all, I wanted to say that for me this semester, boy, of course, I know nothing about teaching online till I had to, but I know all my students, sort of, which has made, I think, a big difference in terms of working with them. But I really wanted to emphasize what you said earlier. It's so important to let them come in and talk. My goodness, I just was not prepared. You know, the students feel very disengaged, uncertain, unclear, which is understandable, but I sort of, you know, had my stuff ready and I thought, boom, 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 here we go, just the way we do. And, you know, we don't go like that. And I just wanted to emphasize that it's an added layer that hopefully we won't ever have to deal with again. Do you know what I mean? But it's just really important to let them talk. I mean, today the seminar spent like the first 15 minutes, and then I finally told them it's time. Secondly, I just wanted to say, excuse me, that I discovered they love to go to breakout rooms, but guess what? They're just catching up with each other. They aren't answering my questions. And so I just wanted to put that little note in there that you have to keep them on task. Okay, thank you.
No problem. Does anybody else have anything that they want to share? Hi, Melissa. I see Melissa just joined.
Yes, I had trouble joining. I have to leave for a second, but I'll be right back.
Okay, no problem.
Ashley, I'll just say that, you know, what our particular emphasis is on trying to get people to kind of build competency with scenario-based kind of discussions around what appropriate treatments are and how to do this particular skill. Things we would generally do in a hands-on way that we now can't do in a hands-on way. So how to engage people in these scenario exercises that are in small groups, broken out through an online format would be useful for me to learn from you and the other experiences here.
Okay. Anybody else?
No.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
Anatoly raised his hand.
Oh, Anatoly, feel free.
Hello, everyone. I just have a quick question about the extra features of Zoom. If we can use that raise hand or like polls, like, you know, voting and go slower, go faster. It's in the participants button. Do you suggest using that in the class?
Yes, and that's something that we will talk through is some of the features in Zoom and how to really utilize them in a class session in real time. So great question. Okay.
I was just going to offer up that I'm using Flipgrid in online class, and I do it every other week. We do a small group discussion only in trios, like regular written thing, and then we do the Flipgrid. And in my mid-semester check, most of the students said they want to do Flipgrid every week. I personally find it it's a heavy lift, but on my side. And their side too, but they do appreciate being able to see each other and engage in that way.
Yeah, definitely. We've gotten great feedback from Flipgrid, which is that video-based discussion, and I had some private messages saying, send me information about Flipgrid, so I'll definitely do that for all of you. But it can be a lot for an instructor because there's a lot of videos to watch. And what I say is you don't have to watch every video. You started the conversation, feel free to pop in. But if you're a face-to-face instructor and there's all these side conversations going on, you don't feel the need to pop into every single side conversation. So just pop in when you think it's relevant and let the conversation kind of happen from your students, because that's what we want to get them doing, right? We want them to talk and engage in the content. So don't feel like you have to constantly be, okay, here are these 10 discussions going on. Let me make sure I've watched every single one. So feel free to kind of let them talk when they want to. But obviously you want to monitor it to make sure that they're staying on task. But don't feel like you have to engage in every conversation.
Ashley, I'll just clarify what I'm doing here. I don't have a course going on right now, but am exploring the possibility of taking my summer program for teenage writers online this summer. It's typically a residential program. So the kinds of, the main sort of class, there would be lots of different activities going on during a day's time. It wouldn't just be one class a day, but there is a very specific class each day that's a writing workshop. And so it's a real mix of activities. There's lots of interaction. There are times when students are writing individually, but it's happening in the class, and then they're sharing what they write, that kind of thing. So I'm just kind of hanging out here and trying to envision what we do and how that could be delivered online effectively or not. It's the sort of thing that if it can't be done, I don't want to do it, because it would just affect how we're perceived in terms of then starting up again as a residential program in the future. But I thought I'd just clarify for everybody why I'm here and why I may not have a lot to contribute to the specific kinds of interests or needs that you all have.
Definitely. And so what we're going to go ahead and talk through is some of these types of activities that you guys are used to doing in a face-to-face course, but how do you make them work in a synchronous and an asynchronous course? So I'm hoping that most of these activities are ones that you guys are already utilizing, and then this will also get you guys with your wheels turning as to, hey, this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to do scenario-based work. Can I use some of these things that you're using in group work to make it work? So let's kind of talk through some of these. So group work is a big thing that students are going to want to do, whether it's large group work or small group work. So how do we make it work in a synchronous class session? And this is something that's called breakout rooms. So you can see that we have two separate things going on in our one Zoom session. We have our virtual office hours, which you popped into initially, and then I put you in this breakout room so we could have a private conversation. Now you can have as many people in a breakout room as you want, or you can have as few. So it could be that, you know, we want to do small groups, and I'm going to put you guys in small groups to talk about a concept. So I could pair us into 3 groups, and we could have as many breakout rooms as we want, and you could have as many different Zoom sessions. So that's a great way to kind of do some of these interactive activities, or kind of getting small groups to talk about things, and then you can bring them back to the main group and the main group session to bring everybody back together. Just like instructors, you students have the opportunity to have Zoom Pro accounts as well. So I'm hoping that all of you guys have set up your Zoom accounts. Students can do the exact same thing. So they can meet after class hours if they want to and meet in a synchronous way. And I can send you guys information on how to do that for your students and how to be able to help them and how to create their Zoom accounts and how to find their personal meeting ID rooms. Asynchronous classwork, you have group spaces in Canvas. I don't know how many of you guys have utilized Canvas in this way, but if you create groups in Canvas, it gives your students mini Canvas course sites where they can share files, have their own discussions, and kind of announce to one another. So it gives them their own mini Canvas site that you still have access to kind of see what they're talking about, but they can kind of facilitate it and walk through it. And so yes, I had a question come through. Can individual breakout rooms be recorded? Yes, they can. You as the instructor, I don't believe, and Jenny, correct me if I'm wrong, will not get the recording. The recording only goes to the person that recorded the session. But I can double check with that.
Correct. The student has to be assigned permission to record. So you would assign a student that responsibility. And then I often give them the task of either emailing me or turning in the link on behalf of the group. Not even if I will necessarily watch it, but just to kind of be that like little extra step they need to take to hopefully keep them on task.
Perfect. Thank you, Jenny. You also have the ability to do peer review in Canvas. So just like you would in a face-to-face course, if somebody gave somebody an assignment and you had to annotate on it and give them feedback, you can set that up all in Canvas. So I can be peer reviewing Melissa's work, and then I get to see what Melissa sent, and I can annotate and write instructions or comments on her paper, and then it gets sent to Melissa to be able to see what the comments are before I finally submit. So that's a great feature. There are also collaboration tools, and here are 3 that I have used and I haven't enjoyed using in online courses. One being Padlet, and let me go ahead and pull this up. So this is an online course. Give me 1 second while I share my screen for Padlet. Here we go. So you guys should be seeing, give me 1 second. Except it ran away. 1 second, pros and cons. Okay, so everyone should be seeing something that's called a Padlet. And what this is it's a way for them to collaborate and put different strategies or possible just textbook and articles for students to share in an asynchronous course. And this is a free application that you can use. And this instructor created a course Padlet that students can add to. And this happens to be a concept and reading course. And so students went in and said, here are the strategies that I've learned from the readings, and here are things I'm going to take away. And you can see that it's constantly getting added to. And this is something that students can come back to and add throughout the semester, and then it's something they can take away from it. So this is something that you can do as a class, or you can have different individual Padlets set up so people can collaborate and share information that way. There's also Google Drive. I'm hoping that most of you guys are familiar with Google Drive, where you can essentially work in real time. You can have different collaborators on a Google Doc or a Google presentation and be able to kind of populate their own information. So if there's group work and they decided to split it up and I'm going to do the introduction in this concept, then I can have my other group mates kind of put their concepts and their closing remarks in, and then we can work on it together. And that's something that doesn't have to be synchronous. I can add my materials and then I can comment and talk that way. There's another application called Hypothesis, which I'm going to put up in this window in a second. And what this does is it is a way to annotate on a PDF or a website. And you can see that certain things are highlighted. And then if I click on here, you can see that these are all the comments that are going on about these particular different spots in the PDF itself. So students can have a conversation about the readings and be able to collaborate in an asynchronous way. And so that is another option that you can embed and integrate into Canvas as well. And so all this information, I'm going to send you guys in the PowerPoint that has links. And then if you guys want to learn more about it, feel free to reach out to me or someone on my team, and we can definitely get it integrated for you. And a little pro tip at the bottom, just because you're in a synchronous session doesn't mean you can't utilize these asynchronous session tools. So you saw how we were meeting synchronously and I pulled up a Padlet. I could send you guys a link that you guys could then populate while we're meeting in real time. Or you can say, after class today, here, go to this Padlet and let's populate this throughout the semester. So these are both opportunities for you guys to be able to use both asynchronous and synchronous activities in group work. So Jigsaw Activities, this is something that I've met with a couple people. For those that aren't familiar with Jigsaw Activities, it's essentially if you have a lesson and you divide that lesson into 3 parts. So let's say we want to learn about UVA, and I'm going to have students learn about the history of UVA, the academic side, as well as the medical side of UVA. And then I'm going to split you guys up into groups. And then each group is going to have the expert of everybody is going to have an expert on the history. Everyone's going to have an expert in the academic and the medical side. And then all of the history experts for each group are going to meet together after they have done their own, you know, and read all the information and kind of had their own concept, but all the experts are going to meet together and say, here's what I learned. Are there any gaps in the information that I missed? So that way they all become the token experts, and then they come back to their main groups and say, okay, here's everything I know about the history, and then everybody will learn about the academic side. So it's like they're kind of teaching themselves the information, and then they can get assessed on it. And if you guys are still need more clarification, I have some activities that I can send to you guys, but I'm hoping I explained that somewhat understandably for you guys. But if that's the situation that you want to do, you can do it in a synchronous session, just like multiple breakout rooms, because I, as the instructor, I can manually assign people to breakout rooms. So I can say, everybody go in their small groups, everybody decide who's going to be the expert of what topic. And then I can have a separate breakout room that I create that I send all the experts to and then bring them back together. Or again, students have their own Zoom meetings. So they can set up in class time to say, okay, all the experts of here are going to meet in this Zoom room, and then my group is going to meet in this Zoom room. So there's a lot of different ways that we can manipulate Zoom and breakout rooms to be able to cater it towards your needs. And then in an asynchronous session, we have those group discussions. So what we can do is we can set up a variety of discussions and have them self-sign up for their own personal discussions. So this takes the burden off of instructors to set it up, because it can be cumbersome to say, okay, this person's in this group and this person's the expert in this topic. So I can create all of my groups, and then students can self-select and add themselves to groups so they can engage in that conversation. We can also, you can set up group discussions, which is what I talked about, of actually manually assigning students to whichever group discussion they want to be in. There's also Flipgrid, which we've talked a little bit about, which is the video-based discussions. And so students can see and respond to each other and be able to present the information in a video as opposed to a written discussion. And then we have Canvas Studio, which I'm hoping a lot of you guys know about, but it is a screencasting software that's embedded right into Canvas. And what you can do is you can record your screen or your webcam directly. And so I can say, okay, here is everything that I learned from this concept. Feel free to fill in the gaps for me. And Canvas Studio lets students be able to comment on each other's videos. And so then I can say, oh, I didn't think about this concept, or maybe I need to re-watch this video about the history so I really understand it better for when I present it back to my group. And so again, these are all different tools that you can use. Whether you're in a synchronous session, you can still utilize these asynchronous tools as well. Clicker-based activities or polling activities. Anatoly asked, hey, can I use these polling activities? And yes, the answer is yes. Zoom has polling integrated in it. I don't know if I have access to polling while I'm sharing my screen. Give me 1 second. And see, I don't know if I actually have polling. Jenny, do you know if you have polling opportunities in a breakout room?
No.
Okay, well, I cannot show you the polling because we're in a breakout room. And then what we can do is you have a poll that you set up prior to class time, and you can launch that poll. And so it's going to pop up on your screen, and then students can, in real time, click on it, and then kind of be able to see the results by you launching that poll. And so that's a real-time engagement for something that you might use in Clicker. We also have something that's called Poll Everywhere, which is a free application that you can use. There are limitations for the free license. You can only have about, I think it's up to 40 people respond to the poll. And then you can also kind of post those in real time as well. And students can download Poll Anywhere, or they can just text the answer. So that is an opportunity. And let me go ahead and open up a Poll Everywhere so you guys can kind of see what that looks like. So give me 1 second, and I see. So here is my Poll Everywhere, and you can see that here are just some demo questions that I have. And then I can launch this, and you can see that the poll is active, and people can go to this website, or they can text this once they join, and then I can launch the poll. And so this gives them the opportunity to really be able to engage in the conversation in real time, and then I can show those poll results once it becomes a thing.
Actually, do you mind sharing your screen?
Oh, I didn't share my screen. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
Oh, no problem.
Give
Thank
me
you.
1 second. Well, that would have been helpful for you guys to see, huh? So here is kind of what the poll looks like, and then you can have the website up, and then students can text to it. And let me try to find a poll that has some responses. So here is one that questions, this is one, and this is just a sample one, that you can see that these are ones that were coming in as I was essentially talking. And so students have the ability to kind of answer the poll, and you can show them in real time, or you can wait until the poll is finished, and then you can display what those results are. So that's a way that you can do it in real time. And give me 1 second. I saw a couple questions come through, and I think Jenny is actually answering.
I'm answering them, yes.
Oh, thank you, Jenny.
Tag team.
So poll everywhere is also something that you can do in an asynchronous class session. So what I have been working on with an asynchronous instructor is having those poll results, but then we embed the live results in a discussion and we talk about it. So for example, one of the questions was something along the lines of, do you think that, I'm trying to remember because I'm not a reading specialist, but it was something along the lines, do you feel like content literacy is something, I'm totally butchering the question, but let's just pretend I know what the question for content literacy was. But then people answered it, and then we posted the results in the discussion. We can say, why do you think everybody chose X, Y, or Z strategy? What works and what didn't work for this strategy? And then they can talk about the results, and they can see what their other classmates have said to be able to really kind of gauge and be able to engage in that conversation. So that's definitely a way that you can work with them. And then you have Canvas surveys. You can have ungraded and graded surveys, which is essentially just asking them miscellaneous questions, or not miscellaneous, sorry, multiple choice questions or short answer questions in a survey. And then you can also be able to share those results with your students as well. Think, pair, share opportunities. Again, Zoom breakout rooms. I don't know if you guys have seen a theme, but breakout rooms pretty much can help with almost any activity. You can put them in different breakout rooms. You can put them in bigger main sessions. So you can really move them around, and you can have as many breakout rooms as you want in a Zoom session. So you don't have to just have one, and you can have 3 different breakout rooms that you open and close throughout your course session. So it's a really great opportunity for you to be able to really move your students around to engage in different conversations. Canvas discussions is another way. We can have group discussions that I pair people up together, that they engage in the discussion, and then I have a large group discussion that then everybody can engage in. And there can be multiple due dates that you set up. You can say, do your initial think portion on this day, and then look at what your peer says and really come up with a plan together of what you guys think and respond to that, and then have your final response due at this time within the whole class discussion. So that's a way that you can really use it. And then Flipgrid, again, video-based discussions is great for them to be able to really be able to see and engage with each other and talk through different things. And they can pick and choose who they want to listen to and who they want to partner with. So that's definitely a great option as well. And then lastly, we have student presentations, which towards the end of the semester seems to be something that a lot of people want their students to do. And so there's Zoom screen sharing, which I'm doing right now. And I could have my PowerPoint up, which I'm doing, and talk through my presentation. I can record this Zoom session for those that aren't able to attend my presentation, and then they can watch it as well. You also have the ability to record the session, and then during synchronous class time, have the question and answer portion. So that way you're not taking a lot of class time from the presentation. You can do mostly on question and answer portions. Asynchronous gives the opportunity to do Canvas Studio, which we talked about, which is built into Canvas where they can record their screen or their webcam or both. Flipgrid is another way that you can have them do their presentation, and then people can ask questions and engage that way. Student Zoom rooms, everybody has the ability to use their own Zoom room and record it. So I'm recording it right now. So if I didn't feel comfortable using Canvas, let me record myself in Zoom, since that's what I feel comfortable in. And then you also have the ability to record media directly in a discussion board. There's an option for students to be able to do that if they don't want to use Canvas Studio or Zoom. They just want to record it directly in the discussion and post it. And that's fine too. And then I saw Anatoly wanted to more about the whiteboard. So let me bring up, give me 1 second while I share a whiteboard. Okay, so do you guys see a whiteboard on screen right now? So let's say that I am going to draw a little stick figure and pretend that this is something important that you guys need to know for class. And so this is a portrait of myself. Very beautiful, I might add. So, so are you guys able to see? No, you guys cannot see anything. Give me.
It's just a blank white screen. Oh, there you are.
There I am. And so here is the whiteboard that you guys, I can annotate on, and then let's say I want to say, this is Ashley. So you have the ability to use the whiteboard, and then in breakout rooms, students should have the ability to be able to use whiteboards as well. So that way they can talk and kind of be able to come up with, you know, a prototype for something or a concept map for something. And then I can save my whiteboard and then submit it to my instructor if I wanted to do that. So that is an option as well. And then Anatoly, you'll have to explain to me the second camera option. What do you mean by second camera option?
So we use the second camera option as like when we did the immersion. So there was one camera was looking towards me, like a laptop camera or whatever, and then the second one we could like put towards like a real whiteboard and put something else and share that camera, you know. So you can just switch from one camera to another camera if you want to show students something else, like on the real whiteboard.
Gotcha. So I'm assuming the way that you did that was, did you sign in with a secondary?
Yeah, there is an option of like in the share screen, there will be like I forgot how it's called, but something like second camera. And instead of sharing the screen, you're just switching up to the second camera that is installed.
You know, to be honest, I have not tried that secondary camera option, but it's something that I can definitely look into. The only way that I have done that is I've signed in with 2 separate accounts and then just had a camera focusing here so I could be in 2 places at once essentially. But I'll definitely look into how to be able to kind of sign on with a second camera, because I do not have that share screen.
It's through the same account.
Interesting.
It just, you need to plug in the second camera into your laptop or computer.
It's possible, and we have a faculty member who purchased a document camera on their own, and they are using a document camera and a.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that's the option.
Yeah.
Oh, there it is. It's under advanced. That is so cool. Thank you, Anatoly. I did not know that. Now I wish I had a secondary camera that I could pop in and show you guys.
She just asked me to go shopping. That's what I did.
Remember, Jenny, when you said that we could buy stuff we needed for our job? Secondary camera. Okay. So now, because I see what the time is, I wanted to take this opportunity. If you guys need to hop out because it is 1 o'clock, feel free to. But I figured we would take this time to let's think together. And do you guys have any sort of activities that you're like, okay, I had this activity that I wanted to do, but I have no idea after all this information how to put it online, and we can think together and kind of bounce ideas off of each other. So feel free to turn the mics on and kind of ask any questions that you may have. Or do you guys feel like with all this information, you can tackle any online activity that you would ever have? Julie's shaking her head, yes, I like that. Natasha, I don't know if that was an excited look. But we are meeting tomorrow where we can talk through things.
I have a question, and I know I came in late, so this might have been talked about more at some earlier time, but I'm actually most interested right now at this point in figuring out how to best facilitate my students who are working in groups on a particular project, and just what kind of the best practices are, since I haven't done this in this setting before where they're on their own. I don't know what their schedules or access is, so it seems to be decent because they've all been showing up to the synchronous classes.
So do you have an opportunity for them to kind of meet with you, whether it's in office hours or just a check-in of how are things going, or submit to me for this part 1 of the assignment. How is your assignment structured right now? Is it kind of they're off, do their own thing, and then they give you the final, or do you have periodic check-ins with them to make sure they're on the right track?
That's a good question. And maybe I should make that more structured. When I was retooling it for this new iteration of the class on being online this semester, the project just totally took a different turn. And I was planning to give them the option to sign up to have a consultation with me, either during one of our class sessions where they're kind of free to do their own group work, or during office hours. But maybe that should be more structured, required.
That would be my recommendation, because I would hate for them to work all on this project and you're like, this is not what I wanted. So whether it's just a simple, whether you want to host office hours for them to pop in and kind of talk through their project, or you can have them kind of submit or a plan of what they're planning on doing, or kind of the first portion of it. So you can kind of say, yes, you're on the right track, or maybe you should start thinking about this type of direction, just so that way they kind of get some feedback from you before they do the entire project. Does that help answer your question?
Sure. Yeah, I didn't know if there were any other best practices as far as platforms or things but maybe they can just figure out the best way for them to interact with each other.
So I would give them the option to find what works for them, but give them a couple ideas, whether they want to work in a Zoom session together and provide them information of how they can find their own Zoom rooms, whether they want to have their own Canvas space, or whether they want to work in a Google Doc. I think those are some great options for them that you can definitely recommend. Here are ones that you can collaborate in, but feel free to find what works best for you. Is definitely a way that I would go about it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Ellie, I think you have a question, but your microphone is up. There you go.
My students are about to start showing and sharing their semester projects, and they're in the form of iMovies and or PowerPoints. I am wondering what your recommendation is. How do we go in? Should I have them put them in the resources tab, the assignment tab, and collab and show it from there? Or should they send me emails? What are your suggestions?
So that's a great question, and it's something I'm happy you brought up. So when it comes to not a live presentation where I'm physically talking, it's a pre-recorded thing. I would post links for all of your students to be able to access if it's something that you want to share with the class. Yeah. Is it something? Okay. Yes. Yeah. So have each student have a discussion or something that group A posts a link to their video. And then have everybody in your synchronous class, if it's something you want to do during class time, have everybody say, okay, everybody mute your microphones, watch group A's video, and then come back and answer questions. The reason I say this is if a student shares their screen and plays a video, depending on bandwidth, the audio in the video can get out of sync or freeze. And so this way, everybody is in control of when they watch the video, and then just provide, if the video is 5 minutes, tell everybody, okay, we'll convene in 7 minutes, or pop back in, or turn your microphone on, or give me a little hands up when everyone's back so we can talk about the video. And I recommend doing that not just for student presentations, but if you wanted to show an instructional video during your synchronous class time, do that same thing. Because it can be really intense to kind of be watching a video through screen share, and then the audio's not synced up, but somebody else left their microphone on, so a dog is barking in the background. And so it can be really distracting. So definitely send them the links and post it somewhere, whether it's in a discussion or in an announcement where you have everybody's links, just so they can watch it on their own computers.
But Ashley, then I'm really glad you said this, because tonight's class I have some video clips that I was going to show. Yeah. So we're all together in our Zoom meeting, and I have these 2 3 to 5 minute video clips that I want to show them. Do I then have them leave the meeting and watch it and then come back, or what do they do?
So what I recommend is just mute yourself. And then sometimes I tell people to turn their cameras off when they're watching the video. And then when they're done watching it, turn your camera back on so I know you guys are back. And then once everybody's back, we can go and talk about the video. So do you want to let me So what you can do is you can post the links ahead of time in Canvas, which I recommend to do so that way they have it at a later time. But I'm gonna try to find a video on YouTube really quick.
That's I was gonna say you can post it in chat. You know what I mean? Like if it's a little bit more last minute, that's okay. Post the link in chat. I'll click on.
My links are already in Canvas.
Okay, perfect. So I posted a random video that my daughter loves to watch. It's Shake It Off from Sing. So you can have everybody click on that and then say, everybody turn your microphone and camera off. Watch the video. It's going to take about 5 minutes.
Then come back.
And then turn your video on so that way I know everybody is back in class. And then we'll talk about that video.
That was a really timely, important thing that you just taught me. Can I ask a question? This is a silly one, but at the end of this semester's course, this is the end of their teacher ed program. And I usually have a celebration at my house, and they do readings, and we eat and drink and are merry. And I obviously can't do that this year, but I would like to have a celebratory Zoom meeting where we do read the pieces and we do share, but I didn't know if there were any ideas of a way to make it rather like or just like, so let's say that this was our class and like Ashley would do her reading, and then we would give her, we'd say, oh, that's great, blah, 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 blah. And then Natasha would do her reading, and then Ellie would do her, is there any way to, I don't know, to make it festive or in some way, or?
So what you can do, and I mean, it is going to be hard. It's not going to be super celebratory. But we're struggling with that same idea with our team because we have students who are graduating. And just like Jenny said, she put up a virtual background that kind of makes it more fun. And then for our students that are graduating, we're thinking about physically wearing our graduation robes to kind of signify that, we're congrats, you're graduating. And then we're going to have like different virtual backgrounds. You can have music going in the background because you can share your computer screen audio if you want. And something that I found is like with my friends that I'm not allowed to see, I Zoom them quite frequently, and it's about the conversation, the people that are in it. So it can still be fun if you guys still have that community. I mean, you can still have fun with one another if you're just not physically there. So just go ahead and fiddle with the virtual backgrounds.
I don't even know how you do that. Everybody's changing their background.
Yeah, I also have not figured this out. Like, I can't find the option.
So if you go down to the bottom of the screen with Zoom, you should see like your microphone and video. But next to video, you should see like a little carrot. Do you see that?
Yeah.
And then you should see something that says choose virtual background.
Oh. My computer doesn't meet the requirements.
Oh, no. Yeah. You're going to have to get a new computer. You print out a scenery of a beautiful, like, I don't know, something random, like a coffee shop. And then you just, put pictures up behind you on a wall. There you go.
Wait a minute. I have a really new computer. It's only 2 years old.
So wait, what is it telling you?
It says, computer doesn't meet requirements. To use virtual background without a green screen, your Mac OS version needs to be 10.13 or higher, and your processor must be an Intel Core i5 with a blah, 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 blah.
So go up to your top left where Apple is, and click on that and do About My Mac. What operating system are you using?
What's an operating? High Sierra 10.13. Hey, that's what it says I need.
Yeah, so it could be that. What was the Intel processor that you needed?
i5. And I have an i5. Oh, with a quad core. That's okay. This is personal. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
We can try to figure it out, though. We'll try to.
Look at where Melissa got to go.
This is my own photo that I added.
Yeah, you can have a lot of fun. It really adds something, and students love it. It's like a competition.
What about you took a picture of our empty classroom?
Oh,
and he used that. He was so proud of himself.
Natasha, do you have a mobile device? Because I think the virtual backgrounds are available on your mobile device too. I think that might be an option. Let me see.
Yeah, it worked better on my phone than it on my computer.
But how do you teach from your phone?
Well, no, I was having a virtual happy hour, and so we were playing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, don't do it while you're teaching. But if
I might try to do it. I have an iPad. Maybe I'll try it on that. We'll see. All right.
You all mentioned my daughter had a spider in her room, and I had to go emergency kill it. But,
you were very brave, Julie.
Good thing you guys were home together.
True. Did you all see in UVA today? Did you talk about this? There are tons of UVA virtual backgrounds. There was a link to like 8 or 10.
Yep.
Oh.
Yep. If you scroll down, they're really nice too.
Oh, that's so nice. Melissa, is that your cat?
Yes.
Oh, look at that.
Terrifying.
This might be how I have my office hours later today.
Oh, I'm so jealous.
I know. I'm sorry. Thank you for bringing it up though, because I hadn't been able to figure it out yet.
Where?
Oops. You're on
Ellie,
mute.
I think you're muted.
Ellie, you're muted. Oh.
Birthday party tonight for our granddaughter who's 7. So they'll be coming from all corners. It'll be interesting.
Oh, yeah, it's so sad because I'm hoping my son's turning 1 in June, and fingers crossed that everything will be lifted by then. But I'm like, how do you do a virtual birthday party for a 1-year-old via Zoom? But we're going to
Everybody watches the 1-year-old eat cake.
That's really what everybody wants to see anyway. Eat cake and open presents. So I think we'll just do that. I know some people, like I have a friend in my neighborhood that's daughter is turning 4, and we're doing a honk and wave by her house, and we'll have little signs and balloons that we'll hang out the car to do it. So people are getting creative.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Ashley. I'll see you tomorrow.
Yes. So anybody else, feel free to message me. I will send an email to you guys. I'm hoping that Jenny might have wrote down everyone's names that attended, hopefully. And so that way we can send you guys information about my PowerPoint slides, and then you'll have my contact information if you guys have any other questions. Thank you guys so much for attending, and I hope that you learned something.
Yes, thank you.
No problem.